EAGLES, Eagles.
Welcome in, everybody, to a Football Friday here on Birds 365 across JAKIB Sports. Getting ready for Week 14 in the NFL, which kicked off last night. And Johnny Mac, we are not the only contender in the NFC. That was two good football teams last night between the Lions and the Packers. Lions ultimately edged them out at the end and got the win 34-31. We will break down the Eagles' upcoming game this weekend, but I do want to start.
There's a game? I didn't know there was.
I know, right?
Boy,
How you doing this Friday morning,
I've never
John?
seen less hype on an actual game in my life in Philadelphia than this one. I really haven't, at least since I've been here.
Yeah,
I've been
it's
back.
low. I'm telling you, I turned on a lot of Eagles shows yesterday. A lot of talk about everything but the game with the Panthers.
Boy, poor Panthers, man. Hey, maybe it's a little bit of a door open. Take advantage of it. Try to surprise. Hopefully the Eagles are not the same way as everybody else. I'll say that. And I don't think they are. But everybody outside the building, boy, like I said, I have never heard less talk about an actual football game. All about
how about inside?
Detroit going to lose. Detroit. No, the Eagles, are smart enough, disciplined enough not to go that route. At least
good. That's all that matters. I mean, shit.
Yeah. At least publicly. But again, it's human nature. Everybody thinks it's a walkover. It's a speed bump.
Yeah. I wish you could take the helmets off the stickers off the damn helmets and just treat every game like you're playing the Ravens, for crying out loud. It doesn't matter. John, what'd you think of that game last night, man? Crazy. I thought it was a really good game. I stayed up for the whole thing. Two good teams, man. That Packers team, you were credit to you because you told me they were coming. If they figured out a couple things, they were going to be good. Jordan Love really does make some really good plays at times. What'd you think of that game last night, Lions, Packers?
They're a little bit like the Eagles in the fact that they start slowly, or at least the games against, they got down big against Minnesota, and then they came back and almost tied it late, and they were terrible in the first half offensively, Jordan. And then all of a sudden they start clicking in the second half, and there's nothing you can do. So, man, if they do figure it out and they start playing up to their potential, and they didn't have Romeo Doubs. They didn't have some players as well. Everybody talked about Detroit and how many injuries, rightfully so, defensively. I mean, that is put together with fishing line and everything else. I mean, that defense. And then they lose a Lee McNeil in the game, and then they lost Brian Branch late. For all the knuckleheads wondered why they went for it on 4th and 1. They didn't want to go to overtime.
Yeah.
And you give Jordan Love 45 seconds the way he was playing. I think that was not only the right decision, even if it doesn't work, it's the right decision, because that defense was not equipped to handle what was about to hit them if the Packers got the ball back, even with that limited amount of time. We've seen it. The old school thinking of, I'm gonna be conservative and against good teams that can move the football, that are hot. Boy, that just does not work in the modern NFL. So I thought he made the right decision, won the game with it. Not because he won the game with it, because I hate when people give up possessions. I hate when people, even earlier when he failed, the 1 4th down where he failed in his own side of the field, I have no problem with. I hate teams that give up possessions. Now, they were going to sneak it, and Green Bay took the quarterback the gaps away, the A gaps away. And Love killed the play, and Gobb killed the play, and I didn't love the play coming out of the kill, which was running outside wide. Then you give an opportunity for the defense to penetrate, which is all up at the line of scrimmage. So I didn't like their adjustment, but I have no problem with the decision to go for it. So, yeah, but the 4th downs, the Eagles, and this is one of my pet peeves, because the Eagles had such an advantage over the rest of the NFL by being the most aggressive team when they started this during the Doug Peterson era. Now they're not the most aggressive team. They're one of the most aggressive teams, and people seem to want them to get less aggressive. And then you're going further backward from Detroit, who's just going to keep their foot down and keep that pressure, just from a math standpoint. Think about it. You got to get 10 yards every 4 plays. You're going to stop the Detroit Lions over 4 plays from not getting 10 yards. That's tough duty. And that's one of the reasons they've been so successful over the past 2 years. So I think people have to open their minds to what's actually going on there. I know I'm not going to win that argument, but yeah, I think that. And then, it's just, I'll say we are a no referee zone here. Control what you can control, but just freaking stop it with the officials.
Yeah, we already got a super chat. Nick Marchetti said, clear as hell push off by St. Brown on that last drive. I didn't really think so, by the way. I thought everybody was way too. I mean, that call wasn't as black and white, though. It wasn't like this egregious push off that needed to be called. I thought it was a ticky-tack play. It could have went either way, and they didn't make the call.
A great receiver pushes off a little bit in the NFL. Boy, that never happens.
Yeah, right.
That's why they always talk about playing through contact and everything like that. And yes, receivers get the advantage over defenders most of the time. I called it zebra derangement syndrome. That's what I'm going with. I mean, you want the best outcome for your team. That or Park Avenue, the NFL office has a conspiracy against the Green Bay Packers of all teams.
I know, right? For the Detroit Lions.
The Philadelphia Eagles for the Detroit Lions. It's insanity, Zander. Are there bad calls? Of course there's bad calls. And don't get me this Christian. I got in a wormhole with Eagles fans and Packers. They're all saying the same thing. They united as whiners and losers. And
united as a bunch of losers.
And Christian Watson with the rub route where he fucking blocked a guy, and they're complaining about it because, they didn't call it before. Everybody in this league runs rub routes. There wouldn't be an NFL offense without rub routes. They call it rub routes when you do it right. There's got to be subtlety to it. When you're not subtle.
Yeah, that was not subtle.
That was the opposite of subtle.
Completely opposite of subtle.
But just think of it from that standpoint. The Green Bay Packers. The NFL wants the Detroit Lions to win over the Green Bay Packers. And why isn't Dallas good? And why hasn't New York been good? Both teams for a decade. Or the Los Angeles or Chicago.
Right.
It is literal derangement. Is the game over legislated? Yes. I say it all the time. Do they make bad calls? Yes. Do you have to persevere through them? Yes. They have nothing against your team, especially when your team has the guy handing out the fines, John Runyon, and your team has a guy who loves them, Troy Vincent, who's the vice president of the goddamn league. Stop it.
We are on a great start on this Football Friday. We got to stop it already. And that may be my favorite chirp forever from you, John. People united as whiners and losers. Not just Eagle fans, Lions fans, Packers fans, NFL fans. You are united as whiners and losers.
Why do these people
that is a great chirp there,
it's not everybody. Why do you even watch the game? If you're going to blame every game on the officials, only losses, of course, wins are fine. If you're going to blame every game on it, why even watch? Why even bother? Why do you get mixed up? I don't even understand it. Like, how can that be enjoyable?
Yeah, only thing that pisses me off with because I kind of agree with you. I mean, look, every team's dealing with the refs. There's always going to be good and bad calls on both sides. I try not to get caught up in the one-offs. I hate the Jalen Carter one just because it's the same thing every single week on every single play.
Jalen Carter's the only good defensive tackle that
That's
gets
not what I said.
No, I'm not saying you. I'm saying people think the league is looking at Jalen Carter. You say, well, I don't like this fucking guy. I'm not going to call holding. What the what? I
I
don't
will
get it.
acknowledge that my Eagle glasses have made me more upset about that than you would be.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm not saying they don't miss calls. They miss calls all the fucking time. They're human beings, and
Yeah.
the game's over legislated. That's the biggest problem. They should let players play more. And by the way, the Detroit Lions, because of Terrion Arnold, have more defensive pass interferences than anybody in the NFL this year. Anybody in the NFL, and they're 12 and freaking 1 because he's so handsy and he's always grabbing
Yeah,
people.
he is. I think Quinyon Mitchell's a better player than him. I mean, it's still early in both of their careers, but
Well, it's still, it's still early, but he's in a better system. Terrion's got to play press coverage more,
right.
and he's handsy and he grabs. But Quinyon's in a perfect system for him, and he's playing at a high level. But yeah, this year he certainly played better. The guy's got, I don't know, I know they have 17 defensive pass interference penalties, at least during the game. They put it up, and then they might have had a couple more after that, which leads the league. And he's got most of them. Davis gets quite a few too, but he gets most of them. So they have all these pass interference penalties, more than anybody else, and they're 12 and 1. That's the problem with that team. I mean, they lost McNeil in the game. They lost Branch.
Yeah.
They have 18 players on injured reserve, and they're still 12 and 1.
But that McNeil player he's a beastie player, John.
Yes, he is. And the problem is, he's coming back. It's not, concussion, head injury, whatever they were blathering about. It's obviously concussion. He's coming back. Branch, you got to wait and see if that's serious. That's a big injury. That is a big injury if he's got to miss some time, because he's a really good player. Some of the guys are coming back. Anzalone's coming back. Some of their defensive front people are coming back. So the team you saw defensively last night is not the team you're going to see in the playoffs. And they're offensively, they're by far the best team in the NFL, by far.
That's where I was going next. I mean, outside of the game, what was your take?
Offensively, I don't know if I
said they're a damn good team, man. That's where I was going next, though, as it relates to the Eagles, the NFC, the whole race. I thought that was a really good game last night. I think you saw that the Eagles are not the only good team in the NFC. There are many good teams out there. You saw two of them last night. When you watch that game, how do you think the Eagles stack up with both of those two teams? I know we beat the Packers this year, but I think that has a little asterisk on it to me. I don't know if fans agree with me on that, but in Brazil, first game of the year, I don't.
Yeah, I know.
You obviously didn't play that Packers team that we just saw in versus the Lions.
Yeah, I don't think that says much about what would happen. But if they had to play the Packers, it would be here in some kind of convoluted way. So I would still like the Eagles in that game, but it would be much more dangerous. Again, Love is a streaky player, and streaky means good. That can also mean bad. So it might be a situation where, like last night, he plays a good half, plays a bad half, a good half. But if he's on and he's playing he's tough to stop, man. He is really tough to stop. So that's what concerns me about the Packers. I think the Eagles are a better team, but that's what concerns me about the Packers. As far as Detroit, it's, I think the team that played last night, I think the Eagles could beat that team, even if it were in Detroit, and it is probably going to be in Detroit, let's be honest. If that game is to come to fruition, I think they could beat them. But again, that's not the team they're going to be playing. Bunch of guys are going to be back. And the defense is pretty good when the guys they're getting back are out there. And then it becomes a problem. So if the right guys are back, if McNeil's out there, if Branch is out there, if Anzalone's out there, if Pascal's back out there, if Rodriguez is back out there, not Malcolm, but the other kid, then it's tough. I don't see how you keep up with that offense. I'll tell you what, with Jared Goff, you better. That's if for the Eagles to beat the Lions and Detroit. I mean, they have to have a huge pass rushing day. If that guy's on platform, you're done.
It's so
He's the
true.
most
But
accurate
yeah.
quarterback in the NFL. So if you don't get him off his spots, you're cooked.
But boy, when you do get him off his spot, he will make a mistake. So I think that's going to be a Jalen Carter day, man. Show up in that interior. And Frank Ragnow, and as good as he is, and as much as we've given him credit, he can be beat. He's not an unstoppable force in the middle. So
well,
I think
everybody's a human being.
Yeah,
you know, Eagles offensive line gets beat all the time. They've given up a lot of sacks. Now, a lot of that has to do with the quarterback as well. But I mean, yeah, everybody's a human being. So is Jalen Carter. So, Frank Ragnow's the whole point. It's not that he's perfect. He's the best center in football. So he's going to win more than most people.
Right. Exactly.
That's what you're talking about. But everybody has bad plays. I mean,
yeah. Marchetti checks in. Appreciate you, Nick. Thank you, man. He says both defenses sucked last night. Not afraid at all. I love it. That's a good Philly fan right there.
Yeah,
no fear.
Hey, show confidence. Good. That's good.
I do think their defenses were a little spotty. Now, the Detroit's is very easily explainable. They're missing a lot of guys on that defense, but that Packers defense is not very. I don't think they're very.
Do you give any credit to the Lions offense?
Oh, I do. Yeah, I think the Lions offense. I agree with you. I think they're the best offense in the NFC.
Well, that might explain part of it.
Yeah, that's fair.
To me, the difference between this era and previous eras, when people would say defense wins championships, no, the best offense wins. So to me, the difference is good offense beats good defense now. It used to be the opposite. Now, if you're playing well and you have an offense like they do, you're in trouble defensively. And they have a good, and remember, Dan Skipper, great video of Dan Campbell, Dan Skipper throwing up in the locker room afterwards.
That was classic.
But it was funny because I was talking about how many NFL players throw up.
Yeah, yesterday, and then that came out,
and it was just funny. But Dan's out there. Taylor Decker's going to be back. He's not playing in theory.
Yeah, I mean, they were missing a limb for a little bit, and they're going to get back DJ Reader. I mean, their trenches were significant.
I forgot DJ Reader.
Yeah,
that DJ Reader's a great player.
Yeah,
their interior of DJ Reader and Alim McNeil, that might be the best in football.
Yeah, in a way, it's built to stop the Eagles, for crying out loud. I mean, if you want to stop the run, you need good guys on the interior, and they have two really good guys on the interior.
Yeah. And so the guys playing yesterday, a lot of them wouldn't be playing if things go the way they're supposed to go and they get some of these guys back. But, I think the Eagles can beat them, but they got to play a really, really clean pass rush. Got to be huge. Got to get Jared Goff off platform. And they're going to see how the other half lives with old Sonic and Knuckles. Because, and the thing I like about the Lions offense and the fourth downs that they're way better at than the Eagles, you can tell Ben Johnson's got a plan on third down. Like he already knows what he's running on fourth down. You don't get that feeling with the Eagles. I know
what you mean. Yeah. It feels like a little bit. rushed or put together at the
Yes,
last. Yeah.
always rushed. Sometimes the play clock's going down. So, I find it very hard to believe they would say, of course, they know what's in their mind, but it doesn't seem that way. And with Ben Johnson, and there were a couple times they ran it on third down because they knew they were going to go for it, and they didn't even get anything. But they already had the fourth that they were already ready to go. They already knew what they were doing. So they do a better job with that kind of stuff. Yeah. I mean, Detroit's the best team in football when they're healthy. I don't think it's even a debate. But that doesn't mean they can't lose on a particular game day. So, of course, the Eagles could beat them, but a lot of things have to go right for them to win that game, potential game in Detroit. And there's a lot of pitfall. And your hope is that happens to Detroit with Minnesota in the playoffs or Green Bay with the playoffs. The best case scenario is somebody else does the work and you get to go a different route.
Yeah, no doubt. John, one of my favorite things that you explain and you break down on this show is styles make fights. And when you watch those two teams, and you've been watching, obviously, the Eagles up close and personal now for many years, but specifically this year, how do you view those styles? Because we are obviously not a big passing offense. Those are two more. I mean, the Lions have a good backs, but they can pass the ball very effectively. I think they're the fourth or fifth passing offense in the NFL. How do you view the styles of the Eagles versus those two teams, starting with the Lions?
Well, I'm going to give, if Jody's listening, I'm going to make him happy. I thought, Matt LaFleur's biggest mistake was winning the coin toss and not taking the football. I think that showed tremendous hubris.
Wow, somewhere Jody Mack is very happy.
I get it. You want to be confident in your team. 95% of the time, I'm deferring if I win the coin toss. I want to sandwich the second quarter and the third quarter with scores. If you do that, you're going to win the football game. So that's why coaches do that. But when you're playing certain teams, you got to have self-awareness. And you can say, Nick says it, and he has said it, and I'm sure Matt LaFleur will say, well, it's early in the game. If we give up the touchdown, and they did. But I think it sets the tone. And when you're playing a team like Detroit, you want to play from the lead. You want to take the football, you want to shorten the game, and you want to play it on your own terms. And the best way to do that is to win the coin toss, take the football, go on a 7 or 8 minute drive, score a touchdown, and all of a sudden, there's only 52 minutes left in the game, and you already got a touchdown lead, and maybe things start going.
I'm surprised to hear you say that, though, because I thought while I don't disagree, I did think Detroit or Green Bay getting the ball after halftime was obviously a big part of them being able to come back from that deficit. They got that quick touchdown, big deep throw to Watson, and then Jared Goff turnover.
And that's typically what you want to do. But I think they played the entire first half behind, and the attrition started to come for the Lions.
Right.
And I just think it's an opportunity to shorten the game. But a lot of these teams, and the Packers, I'm sure, are the same way. They don't want to signal to their own players that, oh, I'm a little worried about this team. Right. And I think there's got to be a little bit more self-awareness, or I think there's got to be at least, and you can frame it the right way. If you're the coach, you can say, well, look, everybody knows they've one of the best offenses in the NFL, the best. And in my estimation, at least from an efficacy standpoint. And they're banged up defensively. I mean, you go to look, they're really leaking oil defensively. Let's take the ball with our great offense,
right,
and set the tone. It's easy for you to do it.
I agree.
I know Nick would never do it because he's got the same kind of hubris. No, we'll take the ball. And then you're down 7-0. I don't like that. Now, yes, can the defense stop them? Yes, of course. I don't like those odds if they're clicking.
Boy, if you're the worst NFL team in the first quarter, though, maybe it's a different story with the Eagles. Take that ball in the second half where the team has been much better.
They will. And they will. in that type of situation, they're going to defer. They always defer.
Yeah, I know
But
they're gonna.
for I think in rare circumstances, and I'm talking 95% of the time, I'm deferring. But in rare circumstances, I think you got to be honest with yourself. And I would try to shorten the game if I was playing Detroit. I think it's common sense, but other people obviously disagree with me, and that's fine. So I don't know why I got on that tangent, and I forget your question.
Just
But
the styles make fights. Eagles, Detroit,
oh,
Eagles, Packers. How do you view those styles and who has the advantage just from a stylistic matchup?
it's hard. It's hard to say because I haven't seen the Eagles play a team like closest would be Baltimore, but and they did a good job. But my concern with Detroit is, if you get down 9-0, it's not as easy to assume it's going to stay 9-0. They're more explosive, even though Baltimore's had a great year statistically. I think you see how much more explosive Detroit is. So that's my concern. You get down 2 scores to them, then it becomes a shootout, and you can get back into it. Jordan Love got back into it with some great throws and some great plays. Have we seen that from the Eagles? Not yet.
But I also on the flip side, the Lions, I don't think they've seen a defense as good as the Eagles have this year.
Well, yeah, I mean, the Eagles are number 1, so
Yeah.
it's hard to be better than number 1,
Right.
and I haven't played them. And yeah, I like Vic, but you have a very accurate quarterback, so it takes away some of the general abilities of that defense to create. I mean, one of the things is make them go 13, 14 plays, make them go the length of the field, make them make the mistake, limit the explosive plays. But this is the kind of guy, if you go back to the Gannon era, this is the kind of guy that can go 22 of 23 if you're just going to let him, throw underneath.
Which he's done several times this year. I
Yeah.
mean, he's had a perfect game this year. He put 18 of 18 one game. I think he was 10
Yeah.
of 10 in the fourth quarter last night. I mean,
Yeah.
he is that guy. He is.
So that's a problem. And then the running game. I mean, for all the talk about, the Eagles linebackers, and they've been one of the big stories this year. That dynamic of thunder and lightning, again, they call it Sonic and Knuckles, which is better, but the dynamic of the explosiveness of Gibbs and then just the physicality of Montgomery. In many ways, that's tougher to deal with than just one guy. Because, man, you're all of a sudden you're getting body blow. Montgomery's beating you up, and then here comes Gibbs, who looks like he's even faster than he is, and he's plenty fast than on his own. But then you contrast it to the big physical back, and he looks even faster. You're an Alabama guy, you know how dynamic he is. It's a good team. It's a good team. I don't think anybody matches up well with them, and that's unfortunately including the Eagles.
We will say one more super chat here and then a member chat, and then we'll move on, get into this Eagles-Panthers game. Yes, everybody, there is an Eagles game this weekend. Eagles-Panthers, Week 14. The 3-9 Panthers taking on the 10-2 Philadelphia Eagles. Could be a good one there. Nick Marchetti says, "What are the most likely losses for Detroit?" Well, Nick, if you're trying to get that 1 seed, it's looking uphill. I mean, but they do have some tough games. They have the Bills. If I'm not mistaken, it's then the Bears. Then it's the 49ers and then the Vikings, I believe. So,
and they basically have to lose 2 games, and you're going to have to win out if you're the Eagles, unless you expect them to lose 3 games. So it's going to be really difficult. The easiest path to the number 1 seed for the Eagles would have been losing to Green Bay for
Yeah.
Detroit. Even a loss to Buffalo, because it's an AFC team. Both of the Eagles' losses came to NFC teams, so that doesn't help that much. You need another loss, and that means San Francisco, Chicago, Minnesota, and I know Minnesota's at Ford Field, and that's Week 18. I don't know where
I
the
believe
other
they play in Minnesota. Or no, they play in what's the last one?
last one's
Or no,
Minnesota.
then it's 49ers.
That's at Ford Field.
Yeah, last one's at Ford Field. The Bills are at Ford Field, and they're away for the Bears and the Niners game. And that Bears game looks like an easy one, but remember, that is a divisional matchup there. That's no throwaway game right there. The Bears played them close, obviously, on Thanksgiving. I'm not saying the Bears are going to win, but it's not
Yeah,
as it's not as easy. as
you don't know what the Bears are going to do because they're such a
they're
mess.
the Bears.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, Caleb Williams can make plays, and but they're a mess organizationally. So, I mean, how is Thomas Brown going to do as head coach? I don't know. Maybe they're galvanized. Maybe it goes the opposite way. So that one's hard to project. San Francisco obviously has so many injury issues, but they're still a good team. You never know. So there's some opportunity, but it would have been much easier if they lost that game to the Packers.
Yeah, no doubt. Agreed. One more. Eduardo Reza checks in. What's up, Eduardo? He says our defense has gotten better since we've played Green Bay. If we play Green Bay in the playoffs, it'll be a dub for us. Lions haven't faced our D. I can see us in the Super Bowl. That's spoken like a true Eagle fan right there. Eduardo, appreciate it, brother. Thank you, man, for being a member for 4 months. That's really cool of you. All right, Johnny Mac, let's dive into this Eagles-Panthers game upcoming this weekend. For those
we have to.
For those tuned in, we appreciate it. Can we hit that like button? We have been absolutely crushing the like button in the last 2 or 3 days. We have been really good, and I think we even beat Big Sills on the one day, and he's got a much longer show than we do. So that's big credit to Birds 365 Nation for showing out. Yeah, yesterday we beat up on Big Sills in the like button department. So good job, Birds 365 Nation. Smash that like button today. We appreciate